What must be done if new Star Trek is made? In the event that new Star Trek is made, I want to offer my advice to whoever is in charge of the production. I realize that I cannot compel anyone to listen to me, and the people involved may never get this message. But the more of us who speak up, the greater the chances are that someone in a position to make a difference will. As I mentioned before, JJ Trek and Kurtzman Trek, which I collectively refer to as New Trek, are under an alternate license which requires them to be at least 21% different and are therefore not part of the original franchise. This, combined with the different look and feel, is why I do not consider them to be Star Trek, and neither do the majority of fans. So when I talk about making new Star Trek, I mean continuing the original Star Trek universe under the original license. Why should anyone at the corporate level or anyone involved in production listen to me? Because I became a fan of Star Trek when I was 10 years old, and that makes me a customer. In order to sell a product, you must have customers. There is a saying in the retail industry that it takes 10 happy customers to make up for one angry customer. It might behoove the entertainment industry to start thinking in a similar fashion. That being said, here are my recommendations as a paying customer. Number 1, and perhaps the most important, get all the legal rights. If you do not get the rights, then whatever you produce will not be canon, and it will have to be significantly different for legal reasons. What most of the fans want is a continuation of the original franchise, not a reboot. If all you are going to do is a reboot, then your efforts are better spent on doing something completely new and original. For example, a lot of Star Trek fans have migrated over to the Orville. If your new ideas are truly good and better than classical Star Trek, then they should be able to stand on their own without being tied to an existing franchise. However, if you are serious about making Star Trek, then you must capture the look and feel of it, and obtaining the rights is the first step in that direction. Number 2. Do not retain anything from New Trek. Do not incorporate any of the stories, events, or redesigns of New Trek. Fans do not want a continuation of the JJ and Kurtzman flops, and for most of us, it left a bad taste in our mouth. Those things can be put on DVD or Blu-ray, and if anyone wants to buy them, they can. But if or when they don't sell, then that's just a further testament to their lack of viability. Since Kurtzman Trek and the JJ movies are under a different license, there is no need to even refer to them or any of their events. Romulus is not destroyed. Vulcan is not destroyed. There never was any spore drive. Spock has no sister. Klingons are not reptilian monsters, and Picard is not a weak pushover. It can be, and must be, as though those things never happened. Franchise credibility and trust was severely undermined by New Trek, so to some extent you will be starting off in a hole with the fans. You will have to rebuild trust. You can start by picking up where DS9 and Star Trek Nemesis left off. Also, make sure you don't bring over anyone who was creatively involved with New Trek. You must take care to avoid the look and feel of New Trek altogether, as well as their style of writing and storytelling. Number 3. Make sure your writers and creators have watched every single episode and movie of the original Star Trek franchise. They should watch TOS, TAS, TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, all the original series movies, and all the Next Generation movies. There is no need of watching any new Trek, unless you want them to see an example of what not to do. It would be good to hire as many fans as possible, since they will already be familiar with the franchise and will have a vested interest in protecting and preserving it. Don't hire anyone who wants to make Star Trek like something else, or who doesn't like Star Trek. JJ wanted to make it look more like Star Wars, and that didn't do very well. You need to avoid continuity errors, capture the look and feel of Star Trek, and add to the lore rather than take away from it. Star Trek fans will notice every mistake or contradiction with existing lore. Some things can be glossed over, but not if it's too much. You might consider looking at some of the fan productions like Star Trek Continues and Star Trek Axanar. Both were very faithful to the source material, and they wrote convincing Star Trek even though it was not canon. If you want to make new canon material, it must be at least as good and faithful as those fan productions. In fact, I would be more interested in seeing those two fan productions authorized as canon than having another reboot or redesign. Number 4. Take care in choosing the name of your series. Star Trek fans typically refer to the series by their acronyms. The people who made Discovery were probably ignorant of this fact, so if you don't want your series to be viewed as a joke or made into one, take care in selecting the name. Number 5. Keep current year politics, and particularly leftist politics, out of the show. Politics is tiresome, even to people who choose to follow it. With cancel culture going on, these politics have become odious to a lot of people, many of which were not politically active before. Everyone needs a break. Critical theory and critical race theory are particularly annoying and have no place in Star Trek, where everyone has moved past worrying about race and class. Those ideas cannot be made the philosophical basis for Star Trek without contradicting everything that came before. And if it is done, then all those Star Trek fans will notice and reject your product. I know there are some people who like to say that Star Trek has always been political and leftist, but this is a groundless assertion. It is more accurate to say that Star Trek was always aspirational. The politics that it has are largely in-universe politics, and real-world connections are more generic and timeless issues like war, peace, oppression, and freedom. Leftists do have some utopian ideas, but their implementation always results in scarcity and oppression. The economy in Star Trek, at least in iteration, is post-scarcity, and they have a legal framework which guarantees freedom of speech and expression. Get woke, go broke is real. Which brings me to my next point. Number 6. Consider your target audience carefully. If you want your series to be successful, you must bring back the original fans. Your target audience must be the fans and anyone who likes thoughtful sci-fi. If the radical far-left SJWs are your target audience, then your series will fail. It won't just fail due to lack of quality, but also because there are not enough of those people to keep your series afloat. It is true that those people make a good deal of noise, but so does a baby in a small room. What the far left activists care about is firsts. They want to see barriers of acceptability and taboos broken, and they will watch something just to see that, but they won't necessarily stay for the whole series. You need people with disposable income, which means well-adjusted people with jobs. You also need people with families, especially if you want there to be a next generation of viewers. I let my kids watch TOS, but there is no way I would let them watch Discovery, even if I actually liked that series. I would look back at TOS and let that set the standards for what you put in your series. So if a line was not crossed in TOS, then you don't cross it in your new series. If something is too extreme by those standards, then leave it out. Again, I suggest looking to Star Trek Continues for guidance regarding what fans would like to see. Number 7, and this is the last point. If you make a new series, I suggest releasing it for free. Do not couple it with a new streaming service. Credibility and trust have been severely undermined, and I very much doubt that after the failure of the Kurtzman series, you will be able to get many people to sign up for a new streaming service just to watch your show. Put the series on TV or on a website where anyone can go and watch. If it is good, you can eventually sell DVDs and get it onto existing streaming services. Now, after having gone over those essential points, I would like to offer some suggestions for things I would personally like to see in a new Star Trek series. These items are not necessary, but I do think they are good ideas and worth mentioning. I recommend setting the next series after the events of DS9, maybe 20 years after. Consider doing a series with Worf if you can get Michael Dorn to come back. A new series with Worf as captain would bring in a lot of fans, and, again, something needs to be done to restore trust with the fans. I would like to see what the Cardassians do after they get their freedom. What happens to the Dominion and the Founders? What happens with the Borg after the events of Voyager? Those are all leads which could be explored in a new series. Consider showing both varieties of Klingons. By that, I mean those of the TOS and TNG era. IDW made some interesting Star Trek comics where they showed both varieties side by side. Do not use the reptilian monsters from New Trek, or attempt to redesign the Klingons again or any other existing species. I appreciated it when they finally produced a satisfying canon explanation for why TOS era Klingons looked different. You might consider producing an explanation for how they changed back, or you could establish that not all of them changed back. You might consider having the old-style TOS Klingons, who are less honorable but more cunning, assigned to some different type of work that regular Klingons don't want to do. Perhaps something which is less honorable but still deemed necessary, such as espionage. The Romulans have the Tal Shiar, the Cardassians had the Obsidian Order, the Federation has Section 31. It would make sense for Klingons to also have something like that. You might also consider showing both the TOS and TNG style Romulans together in the same period. It's not a bad idea to have different races within a species, and it would be an easy way to deal with some of the appearance changes within the actual canon series. In addition to seeing new alien species, both as friends and enemies, I would like to see a return of some older species from TOS, such as Gorns, Hordas, Thulians, and the people of Charon. Yes, I know the planet Charon was depopulated, but there might be more of them elsewhere who escaped the destruction. I recommend having the new series take place on the Enterprise F, but I don't suggest borrowing from the game for this. I would suggest putting Worf in charge as captain, or perhaps bringing in another character from TNG, Voyager, or DS9. Whatever you do, it will be an uphill battle to bring back the fans. But if you follow my advice, the fans will return. Maybe they won't return all at once, but as the word spreads, they will eventually. The new series will succeed, and you will once more be able to sell toys and games. If the points I have suggested are not followed, then the next series will be an expensive flop. Given the way things have gone so far, as well as the current cultural and political state of the entertainment industry, I don't have high hopes for any future productions. I suspect that even if my advice is heard, it will still be ignored. It might not even be possible for us to get good entertainment from any corporate source based in the United States. But if anyone in the entertainment industry does hear this, you must understand that you need our money more than we need your shows and movies. You are not doing essential work. You are creating a luxury item, and people only spend money on luxury items that they want. I don't say this to be rude or condescending, but it is a fact. However, if a good product is made, I'll be one of the first people to support it.